Real estate, we get to learn and grow in life. And so it doesn't just go for the adults, it goes for the kids too. So I saw another young man back there. I like it. So Dan and I were talking about what to talk on tonight, and this is something I'm really passionate about, and it's something that has changed my life. I've gotten my teeth kicked in a bit, growing and scaling a business, and I've also learned and changed and transformed in a really significant way, and I really can't wait to share what those two tales look like. The tale of two approaches. So I'm Nathan Brooks. If we're not already friends on the various social media platforms, I'd love to be. It's at Nathan Brooks REI. I made it really simple because I'm a simple dude. They're all the same, so you don't have to find it. All right, so I have this amazing family. Stacy, my wife, on the left. Grace, your face is very big on there, by the way. And my son Colin, who hits the teenage years in just a month or two, so it's bittersweet. And they say they grow up fast. Past 7 years or so, I've flipped 700 plus houses. We made the Inc. 5000 list multiple times. We've built hundreds of homes at this point. We've developed multiple 100-unit developments in Texas. We had our first 7-figure exit on the deal last year. We're about to have another one this year. And I was the first 4-time Bigger Pockets podcast guest, which was pretty cool to do that. I beat Jay Scott by 1 episode. He was not happy with me. And then coached dozens of 7-figure real estate businesses now, and I get the pleasure of doing that all over the country, and certainly lots of folks in town here as well. So my current focus is Airbnbs. We've been adding 5 to 7 of these a year that do $2,000 to $5,000 a month each, a real number, and that's why the power of those when you buy them right and get them in the right location. And flipping profitable deals 3 to 4 a month. We're building 40 to 50 units a year in Texas and developments, and then helping our students just crush it and do what they want. And I'll tell you, it's the most important thing that you could possibly walk out of here tonight is focus. Because nobody can do anything very well without a clear plan. And I'm an avid hunter. I love to be outdoors, and in about 6 weeks I will be in the backcountry of Idaho. Literally, they bush plane you in on those little tiny planes, and then, I kid you not, you get on a horse and you ride for 6 hours to camp. And for 7 days, I'll be in the backcountry with no cell service on the back of a horse, chasing elk around the mountains of Idaho. And there's nothing like having to be focused on something like that, right? There's one task. Don't fall off the horse, don't fall off the mountain, okay? And then, guess what? You have to be settled when you run into that elk that you finally wanted to hunt, right? And no offense if you don't like hunting. But you have this instrument, right? And that instrument is called a gun, and it has one projectile, and it has to go a long distance and have a very specific location. And this is the same thing that we have to do as people every single day, to be focused. Because how can you possibly hit what you want without having a goal that you've actually made, written out, and worked on every single day? Every single day. And I don't just say that because it's something cool to say. I say it because it's changed my life. So as you're thinking about this today, and as you're learning about what you want, you have to just write it down. Write it down, make it clear, and make it so clear that you understand what it means, whether you've hit it or not. Right? Because we can't have a goal, we can't have anything that's not measurable. So if it's not measurable, you cannot attain it because you don't know what it is. All right? So let's talk about this. Part 1. Allure of a giant business and team. So why is a bigger team better? Obviously. Bigger is always better, right? We hear this. I just thought this was hilarious too. I can't even imagine trying to eat this sandwich, but bigger is better. I was in masterminds for years where every one of the guys and girls we were talking to are like, I'm gonna do double the deals next year. I'm gonna grow my business, 50% or 100%. And I remember from 2015 to 2021, we went from doing a few dozen a year to doing 100 to 150 flips a year in just a few years. So there's a lot of benefits, okay? You have lots of people to do stuff. Lots of people. So, and they need a job, and they need a job description, and they need onboarding and training, and they need clear roles and responsibilities, and they need to have regular leadership and engagement. How many people are trained to be business leaders in here? Yeah, me neither. You get a crash course when you want to be an entrepreneur, though. That's what it's about. We have to figure it out. So you get to hire professionals all throughout that business, right? So when we grew, we had a CFO, we had a COO, we had a head of construction, we had a head of acquisitions, we had a head of sales. We had multiple acquisition people, an estimator, and multiple contractors on my staff. And that was nothing to do with the dozens and dozens and dozens of subs that we had that we managed in the field every day. Hundreds of people. So you can make more money. It is plausible to make more money by doing more deals. And I will say for years, we bought hundreds of homes, and I was in this many of them. 0. And that was awesome. Because we would buy them all the time, and we would have no issue whatsoever finding them and buying them. Now, did we do a good job of underwriting them or managing the estimate or getting it done quickly, on time, quality, and budget? Those were the rub met the road, right? It's easy to buy them. All the other stuff is harder, all right? And less work for me in the line, it's good to be the king, right? It's good to be the king. It's good to be the guy that built the business and has the thing, makes the money. But there's a lot of things that come with that. So there's some challenges that I don't think a lot of people think about. And when you are thinking about building your business and running what it is that you want to run, what did we start with today? What did I say? If you walk out of one thing, you can talk.
Focus.
Focus. So we have a clear focus around a clear set of goals. We make it so clear and tangible that we can write it down and we can look at somebody and say, did I accomplish this today? And by the way, if it's a year-long goal that says I want to do 5 deals or 10 deals, then that means you can work backwards through that every single month. Then how many calls do I need to make? And how many contracts do I need to get? And then how many deals, how much money do I need funded, right? See, each one of those steps is now clear because I can look at each one, know what it is, and then associate it to the goal. So those people are hired. They need to be trained and managed. I remember the first time, anybody in here read the book Traction? It's a great book. Write it down. If you want to have people in your management, under management leadership, that book and E-Myth are awesome. If you have someone in your organization like a COO, integrator, somebody who's leading that, also check out the book Rocket Fuel. It's awesome, and it talks about that relationship between the two. But I can tell you, as you start to hire people, there's something that commonly happens in Michael Gerber's book called E-Myth. He calls it the entrepreneurial seizure. And in this book, he talks about how, and I can relate to this because I suck at accounting and I really hate it. He talks about you hire that first person, right? And you say, like, by the way, you're going to do the accounting, you're going to answer the phone, you're going to, box the packages, what, sweep the floor, send the email out, right? Okay, and by the way, they need to be trained and managed. So do you have a clear process for that? Do you have a clear thing that says, like, this is how we do this? This is how... No, never mind. So this has been a very difficult thing for me to learn because I did not naturally think about this. The biggest organization I ever worked for was Church of the Resurrection in town. I was a worship leader there for 3 years almost. And it was an awesome gig, but that was the biggest organization I had ever been in. Everything else was, I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a kid. And I have a music degree, which really helps me a lot. In leadership and management of business, not. So, this is a very difficult thing. You cannot solve a process problem with people. And what I constantly did, and what he talks about in that book, is you cannot put somebody in there without having a clear plan, a clear management, and a clear understanding of what they're actually doing. Time after time, and I must be just that dumb because I've done it over and over and over in my business, and I'm much better now, sort of, Mackie. We also have our amazing person on our team, Mackie, who's in the building now. So we are working on this right now, aren't we? Mm-hmm. And now we realize when we make a process change, we also have to communicate it. So if you have two people, it's me to you, right? I communicate to you, you communicate to me. We had a third person. Okay, I communicate to you, and then you're talking to her, and then I'm talking to you, and then you're talking to each other. We'll add 2 or 3 more on. How much more complicated does that become? It is infinitely more complicated. The more people to manage, the more people to understand, the more people to train, and then I have a conversation at the top, so to speak. How is that information getting sent? If you want a big business, you have to get good at this. It's critical. You can't do it otherwise, because people don't know what's going on. They don't know what the message is. They don't know what the vision is. We talked about that at the beginning. So we have to communicate that over and over and over. Everyone has to have clear leadership. If they don't, they're marching on their own job, right? Not the company job. And then the vision of the plan has to be so clear to everyone. We have to have the conversation every single week. This is the plan. And make it simple. Guess what? It has to be so simple that my coach says you have to be able to talk to your 9-year-old or 12-year-old kid and communicate it to them and they understand what you're saying. So think about that. Any conversation, by the way, you're having with a wholesaler, any conversation you're having with a seller, any conversation you're having with a potential partner, I have found I am more and more successful in communicating and doing deals the more simple I communicate. It's crazy. I love words. But words just, I was sitting in an office in San Antonio, Texas, and this very successful couple with multiple millions of dollars. At the end of our time, we have this great time, and I'm sitting in their office as the hired gun coach in their business. And he says, by the way, what does that word mean? How can we communicate something if they don't even know what the words we're using? This is a game changer in your business. All right, and then more moving parts mean more communication, and that makes communication complicated. Which again, clear focus, daily communication, and making it simple, in simple words. And if you can't do it and make it simple, how can you possibly expect those who you are trying to get to help you to understand? It just doesn't work. Okay, so key strategies. When I was running the big business, we had between 16 and 18 employees at any given time. So we were hiring and recruiting, investing in marketing and branding. I ran what was called Bridge Turnkey. So we had a very successful brand. We started a meetup, and we had people showing up to those things for years. We were averaging 100, 150 people every single month. And we were spending all kinds of time investing in that marketing, that branding, and that understanding. And then we also had that diversity of roles, like I talked about earlier, the COO, the CFO. I had to go back in and look at charts of what that meant. I don't know. Like, what does the COO do? They just told me I need one. You know what I mean? I know how to play guitar. I don't know what the COO does. So I had to go back through and learn all kinds of stuff from people who'd already done that. And then we had to bring somebody in, and you have somebody who's responsible to do that for you, but you don't even know what they're supposed to do. So that makes a very complicated leadership problem. And then if we did 50 deals, then let's do 100 next year. I already kind of mentioned this. And we had that mentality. And I had so many friends who had the same mentality. So we got up to over $200,000 a month in overhead. That's not paying myself. That's just in overhead. So we had over $200,000 a month just to break even. And then we had to do more deals just to pay for overhead and put into that funnel. So at any given time, we're buying 3, 4, 5 houses in a week, right? And then that also means you have 3, 4, 5 houses that are selling in a week. So you might be doing 5 or 10 transactions a week in any given time of the month. And then communication coordination becomes harder. So think about this for a second. So you have a machine built to do, say, 10 deals a year, okay? So all of a sudden you introduce 20 deals a year. What happens? 30 deals, 50 deals, right? So all the things we were talking about in the beginning, being trained and managed, can't solve a process problem with people, right? We have to have actual processes. All these things become more complicated. And then here's the other lesson as you think about scaling your business. If you learn it on a small scale, you get to solve it on a small scale. If you learn it on a big scale, you just built a giant dumpster fire when you screw it up. Ask me, I know. So the example of that would be, in our company, we had a scope of work. And we would test something, but we found that it took us between 6 and 9 months when we tested something at the beginning of the stage. So let's say we're changing the way we do our scope walks, okay? It took us, so by the time we bought the house, we had an estimator run it, we did the design and everything for the construction, we started the job, we ran the job, we sold the job, we had an inspection done. It took us that long, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 months, depending upon what it was, to learn the lesson. So now you're buying 3, 4, 5 houses a week. Think about all those houses you put in to the process with that understanding, and now you have all of these projects that have that same mistake, whatever it was that was made over there. So as you imagine adding that up, when you think about what it means to actually build that business, you want to learn small. It's much easier. So August of 21, I had 16 employees, and one day we fired half of our staff. We'd been planning for 2 months to have this conversation, and it was awful, by the way, and I sat with my COO and cried basically every single time somebody walked in the room. This was awful, and I hated every second of it. And then within another 3 months, we were down to under 5. So we went from 16 in a multi-million-dollar building to under 5 and in a small little office. Because we'd grown so big, that thing was just running. But it wasn't running in a way that I liked at all. I'm so tired of running this huge organization. There has to be a better way. I was burned out, I was frustrated, I was miserable. And I don't know if you've ever done this. You've created something that you thought was what you wanted to create, only to get in the midst of it, and then it is not. Anybody done that? It's a really frustrating feeling. It's awful. So I said, all right, second time around. Now I'm not perfect. I'm sure you can ask Matthew back here. I've screwed up things already in this. I am not perfect, and I will continue to screw things up. And everyone in this room, anybody that you hire, anybody that you train with, anybody that you have on your team, anybody that you do business with, I have the same conversation. And I think, pretty sure we had this too, right? I'm going to screw stuff up, and so are you. But this time around, we're going to be more lean, more profitable, and revenue first. What a crazy idea. Leading with revenue, not leading with people and problems, okay? So think about this for a second. 15 houses a month, making 20 grand. Because by the way, we had to buy so many houses, we would continue to watch the margin deteriorate to put so many in there to get all those people doing all those things that we hired them to do. So 15 houses a month at 20 grand, 300 grand. Overhead, August of 21 was $225K a month. You can do the math. That's $75K. I mean, it might sound good. But if you're spending all that money and time to make that with a margin of very small margin, right? You could do 3 flips a month, making 30 grand, which is 90. How many here would like to make $1 million in a year? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. You might have to tell me. Okay, so overhead now in our real estate business is about $5,000 a month. Okay? 225, 5. I don't know about you, but if I had to pick, which I did, this 5,000 sounds a whole lot better. Okay? This is what we have done differently. So we're hiring, first of all, in a totally different manner. One of the things that you can do, and if someone in here is at the brink of wondering, hey, like, I need to hire somebody, I need to figure something out. What you do is you take the top 5 or 10 things that cause you pain and you write them down. And then you have them, you take those things and you put them into ChatGPT and you say, create me a job description that include all of these things. And then you say, create me a thing that is the name of this job description. I now use this on a weekly basis. It is going to simplify your life, and for everything that you forget, it will help you remember. By the way, you're going to like even better what I have something for you. So, and then out of this, you build a 90-day training plan, because people need to actually have a plan around what they're going to do. It's one thing to hire somebody. It's another thing to have a job description. It's another thing to have an actual plan on how you're going to onboard them. Now again, I suck at this. Matt has been on board now for what, a couple months now, 2 or 3 months. But we just brought on a new salesperson. And with the help of Mackie, who's far smarter and better at this than me, we had a great onboarding and training plan for our salesperson that she worked on for a long time, and we looked at it over and over to make sure that it correlated with the job description and the duties that we had with the onboarding and training plan. Okay? And I had a call with him today, and there were a lot of things that I thought he knew that he didn't. So that doesn't mean we're perfect, but we're working on it. And we put those steps in place every single time you hire somebody. By the way, it doesn't have to be someone that you hire on your team. It could be a third party. It could be a contractor. It could be a painter. It could be your inspector. I want you to think about hiring and training and managing differently. Because this, it makes all the difference. All right, and then written processes. I remember hearing about this for the first time and thinking it was like an alien talking to me with 3 eyeballs. Like, wait, you want to write every process in the business and you want us to actually have it written out? That's crazy. Well, guess what? It's not crazy. And what I encourage you right now to do, wherever you're working on, whatever you're doing in your business, all you need to do is create a Google folder that says my processes, and every time you have something that you're working on, you write the title of that process, and then you create a new Google doc, and you put it in the doc. Just write it down. This will save so much time and headache and nightmare every single time you want to do anything. Whether it's you're building your buy box and making it clear what you want to buy, or onboarding and training a new administrative person, or you change something in your business, and guess what? Things change. And then think about how many people, go back to the communication, didn't know you made a change. So we pull that doc back up, we look back through, we make sure we have it updated, and then we make sure we talk to the whole team about it. This is what the change we made, and this is why. All right? And business focus is clear and regularly explained. You could ask, I believe, anybody in our coaching business this week, and there were 2 or 3 very clear things that we're working on. Number of leads, leads to calls, calls to sales. Right? We talked about it every day. And then we make it clear why. Why is that important? Well, that's each phase of the sales process. Why do we do that? Well, that's where we get leads. Right? Simple language, clear focus, make it so simple your 8, 9, 10-year-old could understand. Okay? Now, lead with revenue, not the other way around. This is something that I have had to learn the hard way, because a lot of times I wanted to then throw money at that people problem versus solving the problem, create the process, lead with revenue. And I encourage you, if you're feeling like, gosh, I see all these people doing more deals, or gosh, I want to go buy that fancy thing, or I want to go automate whatever that is, it just might not be time yet. And by the way, I am not patient. I hate this. It's not my favorite thing at all. But I know that if we lead with revenue, that means it makes us get better. It makes us get better, and also makes us get more focused at the things that actually matter and solving the problems that aren't getting solved. Okay? So we changed the way we work. We made more automations. So for instance, in my flipping business, we have a Monday.com. We project manage out of Monday.com. And we are having this set up to where it emails the title company, it emails our lender, the information, it emails insurance when we're going to buy something, when it's closing, how much the amount is. So there's simple things you can do that 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, when we didn't have VAs, we had in-house people, we had to have somebody doing all of those tasks. You don't need to have anybody doing it. You can just simply set it up and make it automated. And then we have VAs doing specific tasks. I had a personal assistant quit who's making approximately 60 grand a year. And I was, first of all, for 2 months, completely devastated and trying to figure out what in the world I was going to do. And then I finally got my head out of the sand and came back to the realization that I could actually go and hire 3 or 4 full-time people for what I was spending for that one person. 3 or 4 people that are awesome. And guess what? If it doesn't work, you can go back through and see where in my process did I screw up. For $600 this month, you could have a half-time VA assistant or less. Yeah. You want to test this out? Is $500, $600 worth it to test it out? How many things in your day-to-day could you put on that do not or hate list that you could have somebody who is more than willing, high detail, and wants to actually do it and help? And what I found is a VA making $8 an hour is happy and passionate to do their job. And I had a hard time getting somebody to be happy and passionate at $25 or $30 an hour. That's crazy. So why not? And then I worked on creative pay structures. How can we help our people? Don't be greedy, right? But the lead with revenue part means that I don't have to be greedy, but it means that, hey, we do better, you do better. Because if we're doing good and you're doing good, that means I'm doing good. And that's important to me. And there's a slide later in the presentation, but there's a book called Go Giver by Bob Berg, and he talks about, the story is allegorical, which is not a simple word, but it is a great story. And it talks about how even the top people, the top earners, the most wealthy, the most influential can help. And you can help too. So we got creative. And we said, the better we do, the more money everybody will make. And then we streamline operations and utilize third parties. Something that I try to have all those things vertically integrated in my company before. I went vertical opposite. I don't do anything. I look at the deal, I help fund the deal, and then we have construction partners that help do that. We have lending partners all over the country that help fund our deals. Because I want to do the stuff that I like doing and that I'm good at doing. And then we have to be thoughtful, right? How we actually bring those third parties in. We do the same thing. We talk about what is the design we want in our construction. What is it that we want the property to look like when we're done? And these things, again, I'm not perfect. I'm still screwing stuff up. But I'm working on this every single day to get better at what that looks like in every step of the process. Because each part is reliant on the next. Okay? So, benefits of this approach, more personal time, but I will say, the personal time comes after you do the very hard work of putting those things in. So I'm not going to kid you, doing putting processes in, bringing people on your team, that takes time. It's exhausting. It's hard. So if that's what you want, that's what you signed up for. They have to get your 100%. So they're reliant on you in your business. But the benefit out of that is you get to create more time. This week, it was Wednesday, I think. Was that yesterday? Maybe Tuesday. I woke up, what I do every day, I go on a walk, and I walk for maybe an hour, 3 or 4 miles. I read a book. I write down my focus for the day, 3 things of gratitude. And all of a sudden I looked at my calendar, and I had 7 hours in my morning, from like 8 o'clock to whatever the afternoon is. And all of a sudden I found myself making breakfast, hanging out with the family, doing the thing that you actually wanted to do in the first place. And I was surprised. I was like, oh yeah. And this afternoon was the same way. 6 hours, I hung out on the couch, we played some video games. I don't do that a lot. Don't judge me.
No.
Do I, Grace? No. Okay. What are we working so hard for? Everybody in this room, I remember the first time I read 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I remember listening and reading to that book, because by the way, I'm a real weirdo. When I really like them, I get the audio and the hard, back book, and so I'm listening and reading at the same time. And I remember thinking, this guy is telling the story for me. I want to actually have time. I want to actually do the stuff I want to do. I want to actually enjoy the time with my family. I don't want to have anxiety. I don't want to stress about money. All of these things, I think every single person, if you're in this room, you can relate. Because you want to do that. And I want you to do that. Life is not meant to be something that we don't enjoy. Relationships are meant to be connected and to build trust and to enjoy doing this thing called living. It's not some fanciful idea. And lastly, we want a team that's aligned and motivated. And as I found having this huge team, it was so hard for me to keep all those things connected. And keeping it smaller has been a real blessing for me because we can be more coordinated and more connected. The lessons for me, he was pretty fired up about that. I don't know what he saw, but it's good. Bigger isn't better. At least it's not always better. If you really want to go build a 100-person organization, more power to you. Go do it. But I think most people that I talk to, and I talk to a lot of them, actually want to make 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever that number is. They want to have 4 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever vacation. They want to have a nice place to live. They want to have a nice car to drive. And they want to have a good life. That does not coincide with bigger. And if you aren't focused on what you really want, you will end up with something you don't want. Remember the beginning of this whole thing? You just walk out with one thing. Focus. What are you focused on? Wake up every single day. If you went downstairs to my office at my house, on my desk, I have a standing desk, and every single day, what you would find is my tea, my computer, and my notepad that I start every day, and I write the date, and I write gratitude, 3 things, and focus, 3 things. Every single day. It's not some book that, was written out there, although Atomic Habits, I don't know how many books, I was trying to hit like 50 tonight. But Atomic Habits, they talk about that morning routine. Having a morning routine is critically important. And then how else can you be focused? If you start your day with what you actually want to do and accomplish, it's impossible not to work on it. If you start frenetic and crazy and you don't have your plan together for that day, that week, how can you possibly be successful? And here's the other cool part. I'm still friends with many of the people that we had on our team. It was awesome. We had a beautiful relationship and we connected because it was still more important to me to have a great relationship than it was to any level of money or any level of business. And I encourage you to care about the people that you work with and that you hire. If it doesn't feel right, immediate decision to change. This is something I really struggle with. And I wait and I wait and I wait. And I realize, because I love people and I love doing things with care, but oftentimes if we make a decision or we change a course and it's not working, it is pertinent to stop. Think about that example I talked about, right? We put 5 deals in and then we put 5 more deals in and we put 5 more deals in. If we would have said, stop, let's slow down for a second, how much simpler is it? We only have 3 or 4 or 5 instead of 25 in the process that we screwed up. So, I want to give you a little something. So I talked about earlier, would doing something, a video of how I actually do the roles and responsibilities be helpful for you? So I have an actual video of me going through the actual creating a job description, creating roles and responsibilities, putting in ChatGPT so you'll see actually how I write it, how I input it, and then how I put it into our Google Docs. So you can get that. It's just a little sign-up form. So we'll gladly send that to you for free. Everybody get it? Awesome. This is a game changer. So, practical tips on building your business. You tired of it yet?
No. It's great.
Write down your goals. That's what I meant. Write it down. Review them daily. It's on my giant whiteboard. It's at the top of my notepad. It's in my Evernote. It's in my notes in my phone. When I get on a plane, every single time I travel, I open up the notes and I look back. I have years and years and years of goals and amendments to goals and notes about the goals. I can go back for years and look at it. Make them measurable. What is the reason for this goal? Ask yourself, what is the reason? Why am I making this choice? Is it just to do another stupid deal, or does it actually make an impact? Because I can tell you there have been multiple times I have just made the choice to do another deal as opposed to actually make a conscious decision. And then regularly check that the actions you are taking are in line with the goal. So again, we talk about at the beginning, right? You have a rifle, you have a scope, you have a line that thing is traveling at. And we want it to hit the target. There's a story in Good to Great about if you had an airline pilot flying, and I can't remember the degree, but it's very small, just a few degrees, and you travel just a couple hundred miles, you'd end up, instead of Washington, D.C., you'd end up in New York. Think about that, just a couple degrees. So it's time, and it's the angle, right? It's the direction, the coordinates that we're traveling. So if you spend the next year working on something that's kind of sort of in alignment, but it's not really, which way did you travel? Is that towards your goal, or is that away from the goal?
Away.
It's away. Just a couple degrees. So come back and ask yourself, am I really doing the thing that is really making the impact, that's really what I actually want? Did I actually create cash flow? Did I actually create a network? Did I actually spend more time and go on daddy-daughter date night? Because you know what? Think about the number one reason at people's death that they wish they would have changed. You know what it is?
More time with family.
More time. So all this stuff we do, all the money we make, houses we buy, for what? If you don't have it lined back up, you're going to wake up and they're going to be from 0 to 9, and soon from 9 to 18. I don't even want to think about it. I don't want that. And I don't want that for you. I want you to be conscious about it. I want you to be passionate about what you're doing, and I want you to find the thing that makes you fired up to get up in the morning, and when you hit the pillow at night, you're on fire. So, just a little tidbit for you as you're thinking about this. How would I possibly do this? Well, this is how I do it. I break it into family, personal, and business. I do 1 or 2 a quarter. And then I have an annual goal, and then I think about this in the breaking down family, personal, and business. So family might be, how much time are we spending on vacation? Where are we going? What are we doing? Personal might be, for me, I'm doing 10 push-ups a day, which usually turns into 20 or 30, but guess what? I'm doing them every day. I'm going for a walk. I'm listening to a book. I'm drinking a gallon of water. I do it every day. And then business, how many deals are we going to do? At what number? What is the actual requirement to do that deal? 25 grand, 30 grand, whatever. So here we go. How much money per month? Date nights on Tuesdays. Friday work ends at noon. I play golf on Thursday. Turn the cell phone off at 8 p.m. I gotta say, I looked at my phone. I had this wild thought last night. And I was sitting on the couch, and I looked at my phone, and I was like, I think that the phone shows you how many times you pick it up and how much time you're on it. And I think the average of mine yesterday was like 140 times I picked up my phone last week. That's the average. I was like, this is insane. So I talk about this stuff, but yet I am still doing it too. That's how they make it. So we get to beat it by being more focused and more clear of what we actually want. A goal without a plan is just a wish. It's nothing. It's nothing. Taking action is everything. And I would rather any single time, have a 70% right action taking than none. Because if you aren't actually trying to get better, then how are you going to possibly test it and know what it is that's working? So here you go. Literally, every single day. By the way, this is a super cool app. It's called Done. I use it every single day. So you can literally track. So those are my actual ones. I pulled that off the other day. Morning walk, no booze, push-up planks, read 10 pages. There's more of them on there. Water.
Floss is the most impressive.
Dude, you know what I found is that, I don't really like to floss. It's kind of annoying. But if you have it on there and you floss every other day, that's still a lot better than most people.
Yeah.
Because every time you look at it, and I like to win, and so when I see a 0 or a 1 there, because every single time you start over, 1, like,
2 weeks before the dentist, you
done. I know, yeah. Well, that's how it normally is. Or we go like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be real clean. Yeah. So, and the cool part is you can go back in the app and look, and you can see like how many times you actually did it. And I really like. It might seem obsessive, and it might be, but I'd rather be obsessed about the right things than not obsessed about anything. Because when I started actually being that obsessed about tracking everything, my days got a whole lot better. And my net worth grew a lot faster. My cash flow grew a lot faster. And my time with my family was a lot better. So, leaders are readers. I've talked about a lot of books today. Read. This week, I think I'm on book 3 for the week. I read 2 or 3 books a week. I am obsessed with learning. I want to take one thing away. Just take one thing away. You don't have to read 3 books a week. It's not some sort of vanity metric. I want you to, challenge yourself against me. I don't care. Just read, learn, always be a student. Utilize technology and automations. And it doesn't need to be fancy. This is our actual Monday invaluable.com. We've been working on this now. We used to have a giant podio that we spent $100,000 in developers and all kinds of stuff, and it was so built out and so crazy. It was a lot to deal with, and anytime we wanted to make a change, we would break stuff in the process. So we've started using Monday for our tracking and project management and task management, and it's awesome, and it's pretty reasonably priced. Doesn't have to be fancy. Guess what? It could be in a Google Sheet. That's fine. Just have a process. Write it out. Explain to everybody who's responsible to run it. Okay? So, and your network is your net worth. You've heard this a million times. But I have to tell you, I now have friends all over the country who are better at stuff than I am. And on a moment's notice, at 9 o'clock on a Saturday or whatever time it is, I can call them, shoot them a text message. And there's nothing that replaces that. There's nothing that replaces relationships. Period. We did 700 plus deals in 5 or 6 years. I've never had a wholesale business in my life. I've never once been a direct to seller. I hate it and I suck at it. It was all from the network. So build relationships and make it a focus, okay? And recognize that the very best people in the world have coaches. I love this picture. This is Michael Jordan. And anybody read, oh man, his name is escaping me. His coach, Tim Grover. Thank you. Tim Grover wrote a book, so is Michael's coach. And the most obsessive guy and the most talented guy on the field also, or court in this case, was also the most obsessed in the gym. Don't be afraid to get help. Network with people. Hire a coach. Join a mastermind. Come show up at these things and be a part of the community because it makes a difference. And it will change your life. It's changed mine. Can't remember what and give without fear. Or the feeling of doing something for something in return. It's a really hard one. And I think a lot of people struggle with this, and especially we all have things we've grown up with. We all have trauma as a kid. Every single one of us. We had things, right? And some of these things show up like this. But I'm going to tell you right now, I challenge you to find a way to give or do something for someone every month. Do it. And expect nothing. Just do it. Because guess what? Whether you believe in God or you believe in karma or just being a good person, this will change your life. I remember I've done lots of mission trips in my life. And I remember the first time when I was in Venezuela, I think it was probably in 7th grade. And I remember thinking like all the way down there, we are going to change their life. Guess what?
It changed yours.
It changed mine. How? It's relationships. It's connection. It's this crazy word called love. We get to love on people. All this talk tonight, if you are actually focused on what you want to create, you're going to be a happy person, right? Because you don't want to create something terrible. Unless you're like, the Empire, Star Wars. Do you wonder how they had so many ships? They had so many upset people. We want to give without fear. And I really encourage you to do that. It will change your life. So, create focus. Write it down. Make it simple. Have fun. Work with people and connect. Build relationships. Get a coach. Have a mentor. Join a mastermind. Keep networking. Work on yourself. And give. So, that is my talk. Thank you for having me here tonight. So, I will leave it as brief as possible. So we have a wonderful coaching team. I have an insanely great offer for you. If you need help, if you need a mentor, if you need a coach, we have an awesome team, and we would love to help you. We are going to do something crazy special for people tonight. If you want to talk to me about it, come up and we'd love to tell you about it. But I'd love to know how I can help you, and I do normally do a Q&A time.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, and again, please connect with me. So, who can I help? Yes.
All right. When it comes to reading books, is there a way where you feel like this is my problem, right? When I read a book, I love the book. I love it so much so that I like to know everything in the book. But at the end of it, I always find myself reading it once, twice, three times. And at one point, I started thinking, if I want to keep reading it, I'm going to write it down in notes. Because you know what they say, if you write it down, the more you memorize.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to you is, how would you know that you've really taken a lot from the book to where you can say, it's time to close it and move on to a new chapter, metaphorically?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, there's a couple things. So from a standpoint of like remembering stuff, a friend of mine just introduced an idea to me, which I had not done. Because I usually write in the book and then I have Post-it notes.
Right.
They're like obnoxious, number of Post-it notes in there. But what he does is he actually writes things on a Post-it note, or on a card. I'm sorry, on the just a little 3x5 card. And so he has boxes of these cards that he can come back to and look at and remember the book, remember the thing that was an inspiration for him. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
On the multiple times reading books, so I am a fan of reading books multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
What I found is, for me, I read a book and I want to take one thing away from it. And so I find if I go back through the same book again right away, I don't have the time to like let that thing work in my subconscious and take away that one thing. I will say, recently I read Psychology of Money for the second or third time, and I actually went back through that book. But that's pretty unusual for me. So I'd say, if there's something specific you want out of that book, then go and work on that specific detail of the thing that is like, you probably don't need the whole book for it.
Right.
You probably just need that chapter or that section in the book, and then write out like what's the thing that's actually driving.
Gotcha.
Because then you're not like obsessing on the whole thing. You can turn it into action. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
There was 3 books that you mentioned. One was Traction, and then you said E-Myth.
E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Okay, and then the third one.
Was Rocket Fuel by the
Rocket
same
Fuel.
author. Is escaping me, but the same one as Traction. Wickman, yeah, I think. Yeah, Gina Wickman. Yeah. So the Rocket Fuel one is that relationship between integrator and visionary is what the language she uses in that. But basically, like the leader and the operations person and how that integrates.
We just had a woman in the group to ask about work-life balance. You talked a lot about it, but I have 3 kids, a full-time job, I'm trying to make this happen. So how do you manage this without killing yourself over it?
Well, I've been doing real estate since 2007, and I got into real estate. I was working at Church Resurrection at the time. I was flipping like 7 houses in. At Christmas time, if you guys know, the church, we had 36,000 people in the Christmas time and Easter at Church Resurrection. And so as a worship leader, I had like 4 or 5 rehearsals and 7 services in like 3 or 4 days. So it was insane. And I was flipping those houses. And I would say there's been seasons over the years that have led me to believe that work-life balance doesn't actually exist. And I think about it in seasons and manage tensions. And the seasons come in hard work, and I'm not a hustle culture guy. Like, I'm not somebody you're gonna hear say, I want you to go work 100 hours a week, because I think it's stupid. But over the last few months, I've worked more than I've worked, in years in my own personal businesses, because it required that of me. And so it was more of a conversation with my family to say, hey, I need to work on this. And this is why, and we're working on this as a family, and we're working on this, financially or otherwise. And so I would encourage you to say it is a season and define it as a season and then define it as a specific outcome. So at the point that I can create X number of dollars in revenue or do X number of dollars of deals, I will have X amount in the bank, and then therefore I will hire somebody to help me, or whatever. So X by Y by when, make it specific. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Who else? Yes.
What was it like for you to make the transition from being in the religious industry versus the business industry?
Well, that was such a big church. There was actually more politics, in that organization. And honestly, I'd worked at a few different churches, and so I think there was always the politics side, but it was a bigger thing for me that I wasn't in control of my own time and destiny, and I'm a horrible employee. And so, there were moments when I was like, oh, I have a really cool creative idea, and, the pastor doesn't want to do it, or we can't move, something stupid, just like, which I really try not to do. And you can ask her, there are many times that I'm like, hey, you make the call. Like, make the call. And by the way, there's something that my coach has worked on with me a lot, which is I'll show you, we do it together, and you show me. And when you think about training somebody, or you think about how you want to do something, those are the three phases. And if you don't do that, then something gets screwed up. Now you understand why, because you didn't go through the steps of, let me show you. So I'm training. Let's do it together. They get to understand. People don't learn something the first time. They don't learn something the second time. They need 7 times or 10 times or 50 times. And I am impatient, but I have to remind myself over and over that. So the religious part was less. It was less difficult as it was just in a big transition like that. So I don't know if I totally answered your question, but
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anything else I can help with?
When you were in this your first business where it was really big, what were you doing in revenue per year at that point?
We're doing, well, like gross or
Yeah, with all that.
we did
all
like
that
for 28 million.
Okay. And a team of 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had multiple years we hit that 85,000. I don't remember the number, like what number we were, but by the way, that's another vanity metric, right? Because the gross numbers and the net numbers, totally different. So we actually made more a handful of years before that than we did the years we had that many deals. So we just had so much overhead.
Yeah. What does your team look like now? The structure a little bit,
Yep.
and the revenue now. Like, how does that compare?
Yep. So team-wise, so I have a partnership in Texas. There's basically there's three partners, and then I have the partner in Texas who has a team, and my partner here locally. And then we have a financial controller. We will do in the ballpark of $2 million net in the next 12 months out of that partnership with 4 people. In KC, we'll probably net in the neighborhood of $750K off of far fewer deals. And then our coaching organization. So on my personal real estate side, I have one person who's in the director of operations seat, and then we will be hiring a VA to handle tasks, and then we may do a part-time acquisitions person, but I don't know if we'll need them yet. And then on our coaching side, we have a full-time VA who sits in our group, who got 4 leads today, crushed it. We have a half-time person who is creative, so she does all our content and media creation. She posts videos and stuff like that. And then I have a coaching partner, and I have our director of operations. Am I missing somebody? Oh, and we just hired a salesperson. So we have, 5 people. And so that's the largest of the organizations. But when I broke that out, because we started that group, Bridge Real Estate Investing Meetup, we started that 4 years ago, or I started it 4 years ago. And so, we have about 13,000 people in that group now. And so I made the decision last year, I was like, hey, I'm either doing something with this and it's gonna actually be a financial driver and an opportunity, or, you know, I was kind of at the place of just deleting it and moving on. Because from the outside, I'm sure people can complain about a contract or whatever, but if you're the guy, there's lots of messages that are really not ones you want to deal with, that involve other people's problems. So we tell them to leave their monkeys in their own room. So, did I answer your question? Yeah. Sir?
You said that you're a golfer. What's your handicap?
Okay. Great question. I don't know what my handicap is, so maybe you can tell me. So I started. Okay, the Japanese dude won the Masters. I can't remember his name. He won the Masters, I think, 3 years ago. And the week after, so this is, I told you to hire a coach or whatever. So the next week I went to Club Champion, I had clubs fitted, and I hired a coach. And I shot the very best round of my life 2 weeks ago, and I shot an 80.
Nice.
Now, the next day, I actually had back-to-back, and I shot like a high 90s. So I don't know what the handicap would be. Maybe you can help me. But I
I'll be
love.
anywhere in between like a 10 to a 19.
And yours?
Like on a good day.
Yeah.
Get 10.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, golf's an awesome sport. I love playing. Yes, ma'am.
What was the difference between when you were doing flips and when you migrated to ground up? Your biggest mind?
I mean, it is a totally different business. It is a totally different business. And we're still doing ground up in Texas now, but our partner is the operations. And I failed to mention this earlier, but we also raised a fund. So we have about $4 million in a debt fund. There's a lot of different ways you can structure funds. You know, a debt fund, you can have an equity fund. So we structure it as a debt fund, which means people get paid for their money being in there, but they don't have equity in the deals. So that's what it means. So like
Like an LP?
an equity fund would be like a syndication where you buy an apartment and you own X percent of the deal, right? So we utilize our fund to fund deals, buy ground, and help on the horizontal part of construction. And so we were able to do what we were much better at, was build relationship, me, underwrite deals, my partner David, and then bring in an operational partner who functionally could do that very well. So we built 100 plus houses in KC in over a couple of years, which when we went into it from the rehabbing side, we thought that was small. And I sat down with the HBA and they're like, oh no, you're like one of the top, 5 or 10 builders in town. And I'm like, what? Like that seemed insane to me. But the other thing about new construction is that it's so much more capital intensive. And so we really didn't have a true understanding of how much cash it actually required, and also the time. So you figure you can flip an average house in 30, 60, 90 days or whatever. That capital allocation time to turn might be 9 months, 8, 9 months, 10 months. And if you're dealing with KCMO, it's a year and a half, So it was a big learning curve on the new construction side. Totally different subs, totally different process, totally different,
Do you have an in with the zoning board or anything? Is this thing?
No. I have some choice words, but I'll leave them out. Who else? Sir,
What's your buy box for Kansas City?
what is my bio? So I have two. I have my long-term rental stuff, which is 1950 or newer. I buy pretty much anywhere within 30 minutes of downtown. Not in the hood. We like stuff that's like the 150 to 250, 300 range. On the Airbnb side, we buy up-rent stuff. So typically our average house is like 350 to 500K. We buy in we want primo spots. So Brookside, Crossroads. I love that, like 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 square foot pool, the whole deal. That's our avatar.
How does, I'll follow up, I guess,
Yeah,
with the Airbnb. How does that, with the new regulations with Kansas City, how does that affect future, and how does it affect currently with what you want to do in Kansas City? Or
Yeah.
does it?
I mean, it definitely made an impact. So we own, multiple homes in Brookside, own multiple homes on the Truce corridor. We actually had a house that we had submitted for permitting. It's the 32nd and Main. You might have seen it if you follow me on social. We were literally a week from being done, $160,000 rehab, and a homeless guy we catch on video who bites like a blanket and throws it in our house, and we have a total interior loss and had to restart the whole thing. That fire happened in April, and I just got the permit this week for the house from Casey Mo. Good job. So we submitted that house for permit 2 weeks before they voted in June, and they auto declined it like a week later. Well, we joined the lawsuit, and we got that permit like a month and a half ago. 32nd of May and right off the streetcar. What we found is if you get a good property, and we do midterm, but what I think the problem is a lot of people, when people keep talking about the Airbnb bust, it's because everybody took their 3-bed, 1-bath, 800 square foot house, threw some furniture in it, and put it on Airbnb. And so you're competing with everyone. And so I really think about how do I not compete with anybody? So I have a $750,000 house in Brookside that's killer, and it rents for $6,000-$7,000 a month. And that thing rented in 18 hours when we put it back up, and was rented for 3 or 4 months. I can't remember exactly.
So you go luxury, so you're in a different realm than everybody else.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it is. It is.
I think I saw another question back there.
Yeah, my question is, how do you make that transition from working in the business to actually, making the business work without you?
Yes. Okay, so there's a couple things to this that I use that term managed tension, because as you get better in the business and it runs, you have to have tests that show you that it actually functions, right? So first of all, if I leave for a day, or I leave for 2 days, or I leave for 5 days, does the thing fall down, or does it actually run? So I like to test those by actually turn your phone off for a day, turn your phone off for 2 days, go out of town, and come back and ask what broke, and then start fixing that. And then the second piece of that is effective and consistent leadership. Because if people don't know what to do, they freeze. So we talk about fight or flight, but more often it's freeze. So in fight or flight, we don't want our team to be afraid. We don't want them to be to not know what to do. And so we have to have parameters where they can fit in. So when we talk about the training part of like, I'll show you, we do it together, you show me, then there's also, you do it and don't tell me, do it and tell me, don't do it until you ask. And so we want to make those things clear, and the further you can get down that road, coupled with automation, coupled with clear leadership, so somebody has to be in control. And then Jocko Willink has written a couple of just incredible books, Extreme Ownership and Dichotomy of Leadership. Am I up to 50 books, David?
We're getting there.
And Dichotomy, I can't remember which one, but he talks about how you lead up and down the chain of command. And so thinking about how can you empower your people below you to actually help lead. And if you're always making decisions, then you're always leaving opportunity, taking opportunity from them to be successful, and for them to make mistakes, and for them to learn. And so you cannot make decisions all the time for people. So you have to give room and areas of opportunity for that, and you have to give them grace to screw stuff up. And then lastly, I would say something what I coined the CEO dashboard. So I wanted to have a report once a week of what we did. And you can ask Mackie, we track a lot of data every week. And so we want to know, whether it's leads or, deals or, equity created or cash flow, like whatever your metrics are, you have that running, and you have other people who are responsible for every box, every number. So once you have somebody responsible for all those things, then you that alleviates more and more space. So, and then I would say lastly, there still has to be a coordination with whoever you've empowered to be the leader, and understanding what they're responsible for in a role and responsibility, and what you're responsible for. Because a lot of times people say they want that, but what they do is they go into the business and they create chaos. Instead of, you've already empowered somebody to do something, and instead you go in and you like show up out of the dark. I had somebody who worked for me say that Dealing with me was like dealing with a great white shark that came out of the water and showed up occasionally. I'm not kidding. I was driving back from a hunting trip in Colorado. She told me that. So obviously that is not what you want them to experience, right? Told you I wasn't perfect. I heard that lesson though. So does that make sense? Thought I saw another hand up.
What do you think is the biggest misconception between, like, if you rewind to young Nathan before all the things, right? You had this vision of what you wanted to do, like what it would look like, and then now, like, what is the biggest misconception between, like, what it actually is? And then number two, has anybody ever told you you look like Andrew Huberman?
No, but I like that. I'll take it. I love Andrew Huberman. He's awesome. I love your question. I think that's a killer podcast question too. Very thoughtful. So there's a couple things for me. I think first of all, I really thought the money was most important, but it's not. And my thought around it has actually changed significantly even the last few months, which has been around being a steward of money rather than having money. And the better steward we are, the better I think our life is, because we take it that way as a tool. I mean, I've talked about it, money as a tool, but really thinking about like as a steward of that and holding a responsibility of what we actually do with it. And so I love that concept. The other thing I would say is that 10 or 15 years ago, Nathan thought that everybody else who I hired sucked, and I was really awesome, and I had gotten that backwards. So I had a lot of people that I had hired that were awesome, and I really sucked. And so to be a lot more humble and shut up a lot more. And so, I think the best leaders are the ones that are more quiet. And we have our place, time and place to do that. And I'm not perfect with this. I get fired up about stuff. I was talking to Mackie about this the other day, and I like sent her some message at late in the evening, a couple nights in a row. And remember this conversation? Mm-hmm. And the next morning, I've been reading. What was the book? Something about hurry. I can't remember the name of the book. It's by some pastor. I'll look it up if you really want to know. But I had this realization that I was doing to her what I exactly did not want to myself. And so to be able to name it and say it, like, hey, I blew it on this. And it took me a long time to just like name it. Just name the thing, say you screwed it up, move on. Like, because it builds trust and builds relationship in that way. When we don't honor that, when we don't name it, then it breaks trust. And then lastly is just the relationship. Like I've always liked people, and I've liked connecting with people, although I'm much less extroverted, although it may not appear that way. Typically after our events, I like to go crawl in a hole. But I cannot tell you guys how important relationships are. And whether you're having a great day or having a bad day or whatever, it's just that, I can't overstate how important and beautiful and awesome that is. And that was a great question. Anybody else? I'll go to the back and I'll come to you.
So I was going to ask, at what point in your real estate career did you start branching out to other markets?
Okay, there's a two-part to that. So first of all, we kind of like put the toe in the water early on, and we didn't do a great job of that because we hadn't gotten to the place where we were doing the more coordinated effort of utilizing our skills and tools and coordinating with other people to use their skills and tools. So that did not go very well. I can't remember where we were looking. I think it was Springfield and Tulsa, and we had multiple things that just didn't quite catch. And so there's two things that are really working well for me now, which are our Texas partnership. So it's an awesome relationship that we built over time. we've now done tens of millions of dollars with these guys in just literally 2 or 3 years. And that takes time, right? You need to build those relationships and test, and we actually did test this time, which is awesome. So we did a few homes, then we built a few more homes, and then we did a bigger, like a 20 unit, a 12 unit building, and then we did our development, and then we did another development. And now we have a multi-million-dollar pipeline, but we did that over 3 or 4 years. And then on the Airbnb side, we've just been looking at, and I think a lot of people talk about this now, and I can tell you it's a huge pain in the ass to do it. Let's cover your ears. But buying homes in cool places that I really want to own, and so I have a number of markets. We've been working on a deal in Albuquerque with like 4 different houses. It's been a huge pain, but Albuquerque, Scottsdale, somewhere in the mountains, somewhere in South Florida. So like we're starting to do that, but we just take the same application. So I partnered with a coaching student of mine who was a killer on operations. And so instead of me trying to manage, which like my accounting method up until like last year was 1/3, I just threw it in the trash receipts. 1/3 were like in the back of my truck, and then 1/3 was like in a box. So that was my. Now, thankfully, I had people in my business who were much better at it than me. But anything for me personally, that I'm not kidding. Now, I made it a mission, and again, Mac is in my office all the time, and there's a whole section on accounting on my board. Is there not? So I determined that I am no longer going to be a dumpster fire of accounting. And doing that, like sorting through, endless statements and things like that at the end of the year, which is a nightmare. But I partnered with that person, and so he and I now, we can show up, and we have multiple people with hundreds of thousands of dollars who want to partner with us on deals, and so we're actually we're not going as fast as we'd even like to for the opportunity that we have, but we're making sure I'm not buying crappy deals. This market is not for crappy deals. 2 years ago, you could buy a crappy deal and you can make money. You're gonna get your butt handed to you, you're gonna be out of business. Do not do it. So that's how we focused on those 2 different avenues.
So you're actually like going to going to the actual properties and looking at the houses yourself in the other markets, or do you have people there?
My operations partner does that. So he flies out, we look at them, we'll coordinate. We won't buy in a place that I don't have relationships. So I know contractors. I know property management, whatever. So I make sure that we aren't going in there blind. And then it's a market I like, and it's a market I would actually stay, and it's a place that I want to go spend a week or 2 a year and go do that. But be careful as you think about this, because a lot of these deals right now, interest rates and the cost of properties, they don't cash flow as well as you think. And especially if you're paying for property management on the short-term, mid-term side, it's a huge cash flow killer. So if we didn't have operations internally, we'd be half as profitable. So just be careful. I think I saw another thing. Yeah.
I'd like to get your thoughts on scalability and consolidation. So as opposed to having a bunch of single family, what do you think about multifamily?
I love multifamily. I do own some multifamily. I don't have a huge portfolio, but I love multifamily. I think cap rates and stuff are really complicated right now, and people need to be very careful with that. And I've had multiple deals that I was under contract with over the last 30 days that appraisals came in like way lower than what the deals were, even for me, what I thought the value of the deal was. And so the other thing from a multifamily perspective is over the next 3 years, I think there's going to be a huge buying opportunity, because all those people with those 3-year, 5-year ARMs or gap funding or whatever they did, like hooligan financials, they're going to be deals to be had. And so, if that's something that you're really passionate about, I would be pooling resources or figuring out how you want to structure those deals. So I like it. I had a conversation with a friend of mine this week. His name is David. He lives in Florida. He's probably like the 15 million net worth guy. So he's a pretty wealthy dude. I don't know if you consider that wealthy or not, but he doesn't need to work anymore. And one of the things that he and I were talking about was, he said, we had these long diatribe conversations, and he said, Nathan, I have rarely made net worth from flipping, and I have rarely made cash flow from income from cash flow. And so I think as you think about multifamily, or you think about single family, for instance, like single family, I can do it in my sleep, and so I naturally go towards that. I've invested in syndication, stuff like that passively. But I think it's important to stick in the lane that you're really good at. Underwrite them very carefully right now. Look for opportunities, and also deal structure, because if you are familiar with creative ways to structure deals, there are so many cool things you can do. And there's so many ways I've done them over the years now with creative financing, utilizing a seller, utilizing a second, utilizing a partner, joint venture. So all I'd say, I think either one works, and I like thinking about it with what my friend David said, which is holding is a fancy bank account, and we need both, because everybody's focused on, I want to produce $10,000 a month in cash flow, but we forget that $150 a month or $200 a month takes a long time to get 10 or 20 grand a month in cash flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of a follow-up to that last question. So what are your exit strategies looking like on your larger scale deals?
Okay, so in Texas, the other thing what we tested was, we tested some duplexes. So we did 99 lots that are duplex lots. And that was the first exit that we did. So we did all horizontal, and we kept like 20 lots or so. So we built 4, 5, 6 of those duplexes, and we tested it. So we went to, I used to be in the turnkey space, which is you buy it, renovate it, put a tenant in it, sell it to an investor. So that's what I did for 6, 7 years. And so I have a lot of relationships in that space. So we sent a couple of these duplexes, and we're like, well, hey, who are your guys buying? So we sold one, sold another one. All of a sudden, in like 2 weeks, we sold 9. So that was like $500,000 in profit in 6 weeks on 9 deals. And so we're like, okay, test, check. So we went and bought 44 lots, like over the last, I don't know. I can't remember if we bought them already, or we're under contract, or we closed. It's in the range. So now we're gonna go build those specifically to sell them to investors. So, and then on the scale side of like the multifamily, we were building them, and in a 4% interest rate environment, we could build them and make a cash flow. But in a 7.5%, 8.5%, we cannot. So we just stopped. So it's been make cash, buy stuff that makes sense. And if you're really doing a lot, or you're making a lot of active income, then look at what is it that I can utilize some depreciation for right now to go against my active income. But I think it's a red light, green light in both of those spaces. So it's cash flow and income, and it's acquisition and hold. And we don't want to allocate. And actually, there's a third bucket, which is called liquidity. So we want to make sure we're being thoughtful of what all three of those things are.
In your Dallas duplexes, when you sell those off, are you selling still keeping the management piece of it, or are you selling it, all of it?
In 2017, I built a management company, and we went from 0 to 150 doors in like 12 months. And that was the worst 12 months of my life. We sold that business to a company locally, and I have said sayonara to that. So the answer is no. Somebody else can do that thankless job, including my own, by the way. I did not manage my stuff. Anybody else? Sir.
Do you, like for your bigger properties, do you buy a sub 2?
I have done a couple, so you'll like this. So I bought a sub 2 property in Brookside.
Okay.
And the seller wanted to, they wanted to get a certain number out of it,
mm-hmm.
and in their return. And so we said, all right, we'll leave yours in sub 2, and then we will sign a small second seller finance second, which would then got him his number. And we said we would give them a period of at least 3 years that we would pay it and pay the mortgage down. So between what he got in his small second and he got in his principal pay down, he could get the return he wanted. And we were able to make it work because the underlying mortgage was low enough interest rate wise that even with the small second, it made it work.
So you're able to cash flow off.
So we were able to
Yeah.
cash flow that, yeah. Yeah, so we bought subject to. I also had a lender, a local lender who had a buyer who defaulted. And so they actually brought the deal to me, and we took it down with the bank first, and then the lender put a small second. Because I said, hey, I'll buy it, but I'm not putting any money into it. And so we, you know, and again, we make a few $1,000s a month off that deal. And I have $0.
Cool. Last one for me. If there's like a large, like very large plot of land anywhere, do you do builds in Kansas City?
I don't anymore, not in Kansas City.
Okay.
So we have the development in Texas, or we have the developer in Texas, that relationship. But what we found was it's so expensive. And let me tell you, when I live in Belton, and there's like 600 new Class A multifamily doors that went up out there, and I don't know how people are making these deals work. I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know how they spend all that money. I don't know, unless they just don't care about the return. It must be hedge fund money. But the development costs are so expensive right now, and that coupled with the cost of interest rates and coupled with the time, we just decided not to do it anymore. Okay, see. Anybody else? Dan?
Just wait. But
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
If you guys want to get involved with that wholesale course or the wholesale class or, wholesale mentorship, come talk to me. We have a class next Thursday, $79 for that. Like I said, A to Z, if you guys want to get into wholesaling or learn the deal acquisition process and disposition and everything, come talk to me about that. We can get that signed up, and I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. And we got the room for the next 20 minutes or so, and just hang out and network and have a good night. So thank you guys.
Thanks.